Hello, wherever you are, and today I'm going to share the story how did I end up in Africa. You may know I originally come from the Czech Republic, but it has been the last 12 years I have been living in Africa with few breaks. So how did it all happen? First, I want to say that I never wanted to go to Africa. It was not on my radar, and life happens. I met my then boyfriend who was from Italy. I met him in Sweden, and he loved Africa. He used to go to Kenya, I think, since he was 18 years old. He studied African studies, and he was just deeply in love with the continent. So I was in love with him, so it didn't take much decision making to go and visit him once he got his first job in Uganda. And I flew to Uganda. It was Christmas 2010, I think. Now, with the many years, it started to be difficult to count. And I remember the day I landed in Entebbe, where the main airport in Uganda is. And it was my first time ever I stepped on the African continent, and I still remember this day. It was so overwhelming, the smells, the sounds. It was night, and this was my first time how I got in Africa. So at that time we traveled for 4 weeks all over Uganda, and it was quite a big experience for me because I had lots of misconceptions. I didn't know anything about Africa. I was scared by my doctor in the Czech Republic, who told me I should be vaccinated for about 50 diseases, otherwise I will die. So I was kind of stressed, and at the time we didn't have much money, so we traveled really, really low cost, and we stayed in the guest houses, which cost about $2 or $3 per night. So you can imagine how it looked. But I think it was a great introduction to Africa because I saw the real Africa, not the one for tourists, but the one for normal people, which is not to say that tourists are not normal people, but like for where the Ugandans were staying, we were eating what they are eating, especially the street food. I love street food. And this was my first 4 weeks in Uganda. I realized I love it. It was a great experience. And then I finished my studies, and I think about 6 months later, I moved to Uganda to follow my partner at the time. And I got a first job. I started working in international cooperation and development. I was responsible for a project in very northeast of Uganda, near the borders of South Sudan and Kenya. And it was amazing experience. It was the real Africa as we often imagine. The tribe which lives there, it's called Karimojong, and it's the similar tribe to what Maasais are. So they are pastoralists, they have cows, and they still live in very traditional way. They wear the beads, they drink the milk mixed with cow blood, and they stay in their traditional homestead. So it was quite amazing. It was tough because it was very remote region, and I still have memories up to now. I may share some pictures also later on. So this was my basically first 2 years in Uganda, which took place over 3 years, I think, because at one point I went back to finish my master's degrees for almost a year. Then I came back to Uganda, worked there for another year, and it was 2014, so that's, I think, 8 years ago, and I wanted a change. So I started looking like for another jobs all over the world. I remember applying for Turkmenistan, Lebanon, Zambia, and I got a job in Zambia. So this is how I visited this country where I currently live for the first time. And I was about to work in one of the refugee settlements in Zambia, in the northwest on Zambia. And this was again amazing experience. And up to now, the work I did with the refugees, first in Zambia, then also in Tanzania, it's very close to my heart. It gives me great respect for refugees, for what all they have gone through and how resilient they are, but maybe about that we can talk another time. So about my 1.5 years in Zambia, I lived and worked in the refugee camp. I lived in the refugee camp. In Zambia, the refugee camps don't look like the refugee camps we see from the Middle East or Asia, those like crowded with tents, but here it looks more like African village. So it was not that crowded. It was actually a very big area. I used to hike about 20 kilometers to the main road when I wanted to go to the nearest city for a weekend. So it was very rural, lots of kind of village setup, lots of space for walking, which I did most of the time because on the other hand, there was nothing else to do than walking and reading. That's, I think, when my love for Kindle started, because I had my Kindle often. I didn't have electricity for the water. I was going to the borehole. I was washing my own clothes by hand. So I really, in Africa, I experienced both of the way how Africa is. I lived in the remote places without electricity or water. Like, for example, 1 year in Uganda, I lived in a house which had no water. We were just using the rainwater. The other year in Uganda, I lived without house, which had no power. And again, here in the refugee camp, it was some days I had power, some days I did not. That when I got a solar panel, that was amazing. So after 1.5 years in Zambia, I followed still that time, the same partner from Italy who brought me to Africa. I followed him to Tanzania. And at that time, our relationship was not going so great. So even though I loved Tanzania, it's an amazing country. I loved the people. I loved the language, Kiswahili, which I could speak actually after 9 months there. But something was taking me back to Zambia because I fell in love with the country. And since our relationship was not working so well, after 9 months in Tanzania, I went back to Zambia. And here I am still 6 years after that. I live in Zambia. I don't live in the village or refugee settlement anymore, but I live in the second biggest Zambian city in the Copperbelt province with my Zambian husband and our 2.5-year-old son. So Zambia really became my home, and I am here for a long run. And what I love about Zambia, what maybe you are asking why I stayed in Zambia, what was different from Uganda. Zambia, maybe it's because of the language, because many more people speak good English compared to Uganda or Tanzania. And I felt like culturally we are like closer, we have similar sense of humor. It's so easy to talk to anybody, be the taxi driver who takes you from the airport, or a lady in the market, or a person in the bank, like whoever across all the sectors of society. And even in Zambia, I lived a part of the refugee settlement. I lived in the remote western province where I worked for almost 2 years. So I have seen, I think, most of the provinces of Zambia, and where I live right now, the Copperbelt province, the city of Kitwe, it's my home, and it, of course, it has lots of disadvantages, but also lots of advantages as well. And I think this is like this wherever you live. You will always find the things you love, and then you will find the things you don't love so much. So a part of the people, what I love about Zambia is, on the light side, I love Zambian music. I love how easygoing people are. So the typical braai or barbecues here are so much fun when people get together. You get drinks, you braai. I'm vegetarian, so I usually braai mushrooms, vegetables, which everybody finishes my stuff, even though they are hesitant that it's not nice, but then I have no food, and But by the way, also what I love, because I'm a bit freak about nature and flowers, so I love the way Zambia looks like, the countryside, and it always like makes me feel great to go out. And even if it's difficult when you live in a town to be in nature, which is kind of paradox, but I just love the nature, and especially the dry season in September, October, when it's everything dry. The trees are brown from the dust because it hasn't rained for many months. There are the violet jacaranda trees. You can Google it because it's so beautiful, like the alleys lined with the violet jacaranda trees, which have no leaves, only the violet flowers. So it's really beautiful. And maybe I went quite quickly through, like, I came back to Zambia after Tanzania, and now I'm here. I have my husband, I have my child, we have our house, we live here. So what happened in between? So after I met my husband, we moved together quite quickly. It was the kind of love on the first sight. From the day we met, we basically never stopped talking. And even though the day after we met, he invited me for a date, up to now he claims it was not a date, that it was just friendly coffee, but I say it was a date. After a few months, my visa was expiring and I needed to find a job to get my work visa extended or to find another solution. So at the time, it was quite difficult. I didn't manage to get any jobs in Zambia. But I found a job in my dream country. I said in the beginning, I never wanted to go to Africa, but where I was drawn to was Asia and especially Mongolia. And then I found a job in Mongolia. So I moved to Mongolia for 6 months. You see the painting behind me. That's from there. I love it. It's a snow leopard. So I managed to actually live my dream of living in Mongolia for 6 months. In that time, we were in a long distance relationship with my husband, Chris, which was tough, but eventually I made it back to Zambia. I find a new job, and that's when I work in the west of Zambia for almost 2 years. So it was still very difficult for us, because even if we were in the same country, it was far. Zambia is huge. So I was in the west, he was in the middle. So it was about 16 hours by bus. So 2 days basically. So, but it was tough, but we managed 2 years. We were meeting every 3 or 4 weeks. It was difficult, but we were on the phone every day, a few times, and we made it through, even if we had lots of challenges, and maybe I can talk about it more later on. And then eventually I got pregnant, and that's when I moved to Kitwe, where I am right now. I left that job because at the time I was traveling every week. It was really demanding. I was traveling maybe every week, one long trip, and we talk about 10 to 12 hours on bus, so it was pretty tough. And I moved here. I moved to my husband. Our son was born when he was 1 year old. We got married exactly on the same date. So my husband can remember the anniversary easily. You see the tricks. And after a few months, my baby was born. I started working again, and I started a blog about Africa, because what I wanted to do is to show all of the faces of Africa, and kind of to promote that Africa is not only the animals, the poverty, the diseases, and all these negative things which we usually see in the media, but that Africa is also modern. There are amazing people who are original, innovative, have great businesses. And that's why I started my blog, also to share about my life in Africa, and to show that Africa is not only like poor people living in the villages, but it's also towns, supermarkets, cafes, shopping malls, and to show all of this. And then eventually, as I was going on with my blog, I realized that there are so many women living abroad and in intercultural relationship like myself, who have challenges, because it's not easy. Like, we can all agree that relationships are tough. And if your partner is from different country or even different continent and different culture, it can be even more challenges. And I mentioned earlier, we had challenges with my partner. At some point, it looked we may split up, but we always stand through. And that's when I start like analyzing how I behave in my relationship. I realized I always used to do things in a certain way, which could be improved actually. And that's also how our own relationship improved, because I start changing things. And that's how I eventually ended up as a relationship coach, which is my main occupation right now, helping women who are in intercultural relationships to make their relationship amazing, because we have different differences. That was funny sentence. There are the culture differences, there are the differences in language, there are the differences between thinking men versus women, all this. And I had my path was a bit tough, maybe it didn't sound like this from the video, but maybe I should make another one about all my challenges I went through. But I don't know how many nights I slept. I didn't sleep. I was crying after we had argument with my husband, or the way I broke up with my ex-partner, who was also from different culture, even if not so different continent-wise. It took 2 years before we broke up, and 2 years of quite crazy suffering. So I learned a lot, and I kind of wish that other women don't have to go through the same thing just because of not sharing what I have gone through. So that's it. That is what I do now. I started with some online courses. I started in a Czech language, but since this year I'm doing it in English, because I think it's even more exciting, because we are so many across the world who have a partner from different cultures, and I love the combinations of all different couples. So my main objective is basically, I want to have a world when intercultural couples are a norm and not something which is rare, because we always, again, as in Africa, we hear the negative things, but the same is about intercultural relationship and how it didn't work out, or how the husband is keeping the child in one country, and all these crazy stories. But there are so many relationships that actually work, and together we can make this a norm. So this is why I'm here. This was a bit of my story. If there is something you are curious about, just write in the comments. I will respond, or you can follow me or on Instagram or on my website. The links will be below the video, and I will look forward to hear from you, and I can do some more videos based on your questions. So have a great day. Greetings from Zambia, and I will see you soon.